The next morning, Karen sat in her home office surrounded by boxes of HOA files, her usual perfectly styled hair pulled back in a messy ponytail. She'd been up all night, cross-referencing violation notices with enforcement actions, and the pattern Margaret had hinted at was becoming impossible to ignore. The Rodriguez family, 17 violations in 2 years. The Chens, 23 violations. The Patels, 15 violations. The Johnsons, a nice white family from Ohio, 0 violations, despite their clearly burgundy mailbox and unauthorized deck extension. Her hands trembled as she reached for her coffee, now cold and bitter. How had she not seen it before? Or worse, had she seen it and chosen to ignore it? The doorbell rang, and Karen's stomach dropped. Through the peephole, she saw Dave holding a cardboard box, the same expression on his face he'd worn when he'd moved out after her second divorce. "We need to talk," he said quietly when she opened the door. "If you're here to lecture me about..." "I'm here because I love you, Karen, even when you make it really, really hard." She let him in, and they sat in the living room where she'd hosted countless HOA board meetings, planned neighborhood improvement projects, and yes, strategized about problem residents. "The whole neighborhood's talking," Dave said, setting the box on her coffee table. "Mrs. Rodriguez brought me these this morning." Karen opened the box to find dozens of violation notices, all bearing her signature. But seeing them together like this, the pattern was unmistakable. Late-night noise complaints filed against the Chens during their son's birthday party, but no complaints about the Thompsons' equally loud Super Bowl gathering. Landscaping violations against the Patel's traditional garden, while ignoring the Millers' equally non-conforming rock garden. "I didn't mean," Karen started, then stopped. Didn't she? Hadn't there been a tiny voice in her head suggesting that some residents were more suitable for Willowbrook Estates than others? Dave leaned forward. "Remember when we first moved here? You said you wanted to create a community where everyone felt welcome. When did that change?" The question hung in the air like smoke. Karen could pinpoint the exact moment. 3 years ago, when the Hendersons had complained about those people moving in, referring to the Chen family. Instead of shutting down the conversation, Karen had listened. She'd nodded. She'd let their poison seep into her decision-making process. Her phone buzzed with a text from Margaret Holloway. "Channel 7 wants an interview. I can make this go away quietly, or we can let the court of public opinion decide. Your choice." Karen stared at the message, then at the box of evidence, then at her husband who'd stood by her through 2 failed marriages, but was drawing a line at this. "What do I do, Dave?" For the first time in years, she wasn't asking as the HOA president or the neighborhood authority figure. She was asking as someone who'd lost her way and didn't know how to find it again. Dave reached over and took her hand. "You could start by doing the right thing. Publicly. Completely. No half measures, no saving face." Karen nodded slowly, her mind already forming a plan. Not the calculated, strategic planning she was known for, but something scarier, an honest reckoning with what she'd become. But as she picked up her phone to call Margaret, another text came through from an unknown number. "We know about the financial irregularities in the HOA budget. The mailbox issue is just the beginning." A friend. Karen's blood ran cold. What financial irregularities? She'd been meticulous with the books, hadn't she? Or had her selective attention extended beyond enforcement patterns? Dave noticed her expression change. "What is it?" Karen showed him the message, and they both stared at it in silence. Just when she thought she'd identified the full scope of her problems, the game had changed again. Someone else was playing chess too, and Karen was beginning to realize she might not even know all the pieces on the board. Karen Whitmore adjusted her designer blazer and checked her reflection in her Mercedes side mirror one last time. Today was the day she'd finally rid Willowbrook Estates of its most problematic resident, that insufferable Mr. Chen, who dared to paint his mailbox navy blue instead of regulation forest green. But as she rounded the corner to Maple Street, her perfectly applied lipstick nearly smudged in shock. Mr. Chen's driveway was packed with vehicles, a news van from Channel 7, 3 police cruisers, and what appeared to be half the neighborhood standing on his perfectly manicured lawn. A reporter was setting up a camera while Chen himself sat calmly in a folding chair, sipping tea like he was hosting a garden party instead of facing eviction. "What in the Sam Hill?" Karen muttered, slamming her car door with enough force to rattle her HOA board president bumper sticker. The second shock came when she spotted her own husband, Dave, among the crowd, holding a handmade sign that read "Justice" for CHEN in bold red letters. Their eyes met across the chaos, and Dave had the audacity to wave at her like they'd bumped into each other at the grocery store. But the third and most infuriating shock was the woman stepping out of a black sedan. Margaret Holloway, the lawyer who'd made Karen's life miserable during her messy divorce from husband number 2. Margaret's silver hair gleamed in the morning sun as she strode toward Karen with a predatory smile. "Karen, how lovely to see you again," Margaret purred, extending a manicured hand that Karen refused to shake. "I'm representing Mr. Chen in this matter. Fascinating case, really. Selective enforcement, harassment, potential discrimination. Oh, the angles we could explore." Karen's face flushed crimson. This was supposed to be simple. Show up with the board's backing, present the violation notices, and watch Chen pack his bags. Instead, she was facing a 3-ring circus with herself as the main attraction. "This is ridiculous," Karen snapped, clutching her violation folder so tightly her knuckles went white. "The man painted his mailbox the wrong color. It's a clear violation of Section 4.2b of our covenants." "Is it though?" Margaret pulled out a tablet, swiping to a document. "Because according to the original 1987 covenants, the ones actually filed with the county, navy blue is listed as an acceptable color variant. The 2019 revision you're citing was never properly ratified by the required 2/3 homeowner vote." The crowd murmured, and Karen felt the ground shifting beneath her sensible heels. She'd spent 3 years as HOA president, building her reputation on strict rule enforcement. The Hendersons' unauthorized rose bushes, the Patel's slightly too tall fence, Mrs. Rodriguez's wind chimes. She'd handled them all with surgical precision. But Chen had been her white whale, the one resident who questioned every fine, requested every document, and somehow always found loopholes. "That's impossible," Karen stammered, but doubt crept into her voice. When had she last actually read the original covenants? The Channel 7 reporter thrust a microphone toward her. "Mrs. Whitmore, neighbors are calling this harassment. Do you have a comment on Mr. Chen's allegation that you've specifically targeted him while ignoring similar violations by other residents?" Karen's mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. Similar violations. She'd been meticulous, hadn't she? But as she scanned the crowd, she noticed things she'd somehow overlooked. The Johnsons' mailbox was clearly burgundy, not forest green. The Millers had installed decorative shutters without approval. Even her own neighbor's garden gnome violated the "no lawn ornaments" clause. Margaret stepped closer, lowering her voice so only Karen could hear. "You know, Karen, I've been documenting your HOA's enforcement patterns for months. Funny how the violations you pursue seem to correlate with, shall we say, certain demographic patterns. A jury might find that very interesting." The words hit Karen like ice water. This wasn't about mailbox colors anymore. This was about everything: her authority, her reputation, possibly even her legal exposure. As she looked around at the hostile faces, she realized she'd made a critical error. She thought she was playing checkers, but Chen and his lawyer were playing chess. And somehow, despite all her careful planning and backup documentation, Karen was the one who wasn't ready for this fight.